Hello, my name is Fodelianakis Antonios, and I am an educator in Greece, a PhD candidate in the University of the Basque country, under the supervision of Professors Ainara Andonegui Romero and Javier Olabe Bazogen. My research is an attempt to explore the deeper correlation between teaching practices and the integration of children with functional autism in the primary and the secondary education system in Greece. As a matter of fact, the title of my research is The Inclusion of Children with Functional Neurodevelopmental Disorders, mild ASD, Asperger, in the Greek formal education. Teachers' perceptions and attitudes on the inclusion of children with functional autism, the bidirectional influences in the classroom and the inclusion processes. In the last 2 years, I have almost completed the theoretical framework and the conceptualization of my research. And I organized my work in a personal site that is www.fodelianakis.gr that I'm going to present later. And I participated in various international conferences, always by presenting some papers on my subject and my thesis, or other subjects that's always nearby my subject of my thesis. All of them was relevant information for my research. The relevant information are on my personal site that I'm going to present you now. As a matter of fact, my personal site is this one. At the first page, there is the questionnaire that I have organized on Google Documents. There are always the participation in various conferences. As a matter of fact, I participated in various conferences. In the last year, I participated in the 6th International Scientific Congress of the Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences in Crete, Greece. And I presented 2 papers. The first one is the autistic spectrum disorder and special language disorder, the hypothesis of the clinical continuum and the genetic behavioral features. And the second paper was the case of a study of a student with ASD in a technical special education school here in Heraklion with an orthographic evaluation, and presented some the teaching objectives. Afterwards, I participated in another congress, the 3rd Panhellenic Conference of the Regional Directorate of Education of Crete, in which I presented again 2 papers. The first one was the overlap district diagnostic boundaries and the clinical continuum hypothesis, the role of genetic and behavioral characteristics. It was an overlap or it's a clinical continuum. And the second one was a paper presented with Milathianaki Yasemi, Zachu Lopez, and then me. It was the assessing the spelling skills of a child with severe mental retardation. It was a case study that we presented there. All 4 papers that I presented there afterwards they were published in the annals of the conferences after the judge of critics. As a matter of fact, these are the papers that were published at the conferences. On my site, there is also, of course, the curriculum vitae, in which can be found some information about my professional life and work here in Greece. As a matter of fact, it's presented here. A very important part of my site, my personal site, is at the first page, as I described before. It is the questionnaire that is thrown on Google Documents, and it is still online because we want to gather more responses. As about my questionnaire, we'll come back later on it and I will describe it. Till now, I have almost finished the first part, that is the first three chapters. The first one is the literature review on the inclusion of children with ASD and SENS in the Greek mainstream school. The second chapter was the passage from marginalization to the inclusive education by paying attention to the models of disability and their correlation with the education models. As a matter of fact, I paid much attention on the correlation of the medical or otherwise called individual model with the special education and the marginalization of children with handicap, with ASD or other disabilities. Afterwards, I tried to gather information on the social model and the interactive or the biopsychosocial model, three models that led gradually to the full inclusion, as a matter of fact, to the co-education, the full inclusion as the Salamanca Conference required. And of course, there is the third chapter, that's on the background of that is my main research, that is the literature review on teachers' perceptions and attitudes on the inclusion of children with ASD, Asperger's, and other special educational needs. And of course, it was and the factors that and the influential factors that makes teachers to change their point of view on the inclusion of children with ASD. About the problem statement, Greek surveys report mostly teachers' perception on the inclusion of physical or other disorders and very little on ASD inclusion. This kind of researches are pointing mostly on teachers' perception of non-functional ASD cases, or about a very early inclusion, and very little on the inclusion of mild ASD children and Asperger's disorder. That is very functional ASD cases. Very often we have to admit that there are many cases of ASD, mild ASD, that's Asperger, that they are diagnosed not at an early age, but only at the age of 13, 14 years old. And we're trying to find out what is the problem that the schooling system facing, and the social pressure, and the frustrations, of course, and the failure of the milestones, the failure of the milestones, of course. The purpose of the study is, of course, to measure and to contrast the attitudes and the beliefs of teachers with or without previous education on the ASD inclusion processes, the contingent differences between teachers of primary and secondary schools, and other differences that maybe arise from their different demographic characteristics, such as their age, gender, the personal situation, for example, if they have children on their own with ASD or other special educational needs. The research questions concern the way in which teachers deal with the inclusion of children with functional autism in primary and secondary education, taking into account demographic conditions as well as previous experience and knowledge. Some of the basic questions that are raising after the background research are: what are teachers' perceptions on the inclusion of children with functional autism in Greek mainstream school? What are teachers' beliefs about the efficacy of including children with functional autism in Greek formal education? And many others. For example, the sixth question is that in what extent teachers' gender, age, or previous knowledge on sense, or their teaching experience in special education makes a difference in the way of the inclusion of those children. As about the questionnaire, it was a large-scale quantitative method, and we used structured questionnaires based on validated questionnaires. For example, the first part is the teacher attitudes toward inclusion scale, TATIS, the questionnaire of Cullen, Gregory, and Notter, used and adapted before by Wilkerson, in order, of course, to examine not only the beliefs and the attitude, or not only the attitudes, but the beliefs too, on the inclusion. And of course, there's the second part, that is the Rabel, Toland, Birswhistle, Magru, and Yusha's questionnaire. That it was a preliminary study of the autism self-efficacy scale for teachers. The questionnaires, both and the demographics, were on Google Documents. As a matter of fact, I would like to present it here. It's still online because we want to gather more information from Greek teachers. As a matter of fact, till now, we have about 1,000 of responses. It's about 976, if I remember, that responded. That's a great number. It's a great number of responses, but I would like to gather some more. As a matter of fact, as you can see here, the responses are here presented. It's about 1,000 responses. That's already a great number for the extent of my country, for Greece. And but I prefer to leave it as it is for a month or two, in case that other teachers want to answer this questionnaire. The expected result. The results of the survey are expected to confirm all the hypotheses. In particular, it's expected that teachers with significantly more experience and knowledge of inclusion will exhibit significantly more positive attitudes compared to teachers without prior experience and knowledge. Secondly, I expect that female teachers and teachers with previous experience will have more positive attitudes compared to their male colleagues and to those without any previous tension. I plan to stop throwing the questionnaire in about September, October, and afterwards to work on it on SPSS, IBM SPSS, and to finish the statistics till the end of the year. Thank you for your attention. Thank you again.